Naruto wants to become Hokage and get acknowledged by the village. Light wants to become a god. Luffy wants to find One Piece and become Pirate King. Deku wants to be a hero. And Tanjiro just wants to cure his sister. Your character motivations need to garner interest and empathy from your audience, or else your story just falls apart. Your audience needs to care about what happens to them, whether they succeed or fail. And you know it's working if your audience is engaged throughout. For the most part, your main character shouldn't feel like they're just along for the ride. Their existence should be what drives and develops the plot in major ways, and not the other way around. So for this video, I'm going to keep it simple and go over just the basics of making sure your characters have strong motivations, that your audience is engaged and interested. For your main character, we'll talk about what the motivation can be, why it exists in the first place, and what happens after success or failure of that goal. All things that help shape the foundation of the character. Without it, your character is incomplete. First, you got to figure out what is the motivation. Figure out what your main character's goal is, and then make it clear to your audience what that is. Very clear early on in the story, at least by the end of the first chapter or episode or whatever. They could be the type that, has no purpose yet and they're finding their way. But I'd say that's more difficult to pull off, because then you have to rely on other things besides the main character or the main character's motivation to keep your audience engaged and immersed and have empathy and just be interested in what's going on. Especially if you want them to really root for your main character. There should be some understanding there. Something else has to not only keep the audience immersed, but you still need to find ways for us to care about the main character and also for us to see them as the main character if they are in fact the main character. But it's not impossible. Maybe their goal is to find purpose, which we'll go over once we start talking about the list of potential ideas of what your main character's motivation could be. But whatever it is, you should be able to illustrate what their goals are, not just by them saying it, but by their actions as the story develops. Show, don't tell. All your characters should have their goals shown to varying degrees depending on how important they are to the plot. With the main character being, the main character, you gotta nail that part. Some characters can have opposing goals and motivations, usually the protagonist and the antagonist. Sometimes it complements or is connected to the villain's motivation in some way, maybe unknowingly until they meet. Or maybe the motivations are actually aligned, but the execution from each party is very different. Professor X wants the best for the mutants, Magneto wants the best for the mutants, but only one of them is willing to smoke everybody to get it done. And obviously they have other things that motivate them, so your character can have obviously more than one. But it's always nice to have one really identifiable signature one. Next is why the motivation exists. Like, it's easy to just come up with an idea for your character, but you want to find one that actually fits the character and why they would even want that goal or have that motivation in the first place. Where does the motivation stem from? This can help the viewers or readers or your audience understand the character a whole lot more and, let us know whether to root for them or be against them. But at least understand them. You want that. Naruto wants to be Hokage. But it really stems from the fact that he's been alone all of his life, and he just wants to be acknowledged by the village. Therefore, becoming Hokage, the village and the rest of, the whole Naruto-verse will have no choice but to acknowledge him, and maybe that way he feels he won't be alone anymore. So really it just stems from him being alone all of his life. With Tanjiro's, it's pretty self-explanatory why he'd want to cure his sister. His family got attacked, so sister became a demon. He's trying to find a cure for his sister. But it also explains why he becomes a demon slayer. And then all the other motivations that come with that and wanting to help people, it's all connected. The motivation could be almost anything. Traditionally, evil motivations are hard to root for because nobody really wants to root for the bad guy unless there's something appealing about him. Also, overtly virtuous ones, super goody two-shoes guys, can be hard to root for as well. It's worse if they barely struggled at all and barely have any obstacles. I'm looking at you, John Cena, even though I don't see anything. If your character's motivations are vague or hard to grasp, readers may tune out. Sometimes two connected goals are needed, one personal one or even selfish one, and then another that can kind of be shared within a group, mostly used to form allies. If your main character's goal is to rid the world of evil, there are probably a couple other people who have that same goal. It's a very general goal, and you can use that to form bonds with side characters, and so on and so forth. And then lastly, what happens after failure? What is the consequence. Consequence always helps to add tension, especially when there's like a time limit to it. Deku wanting to become a hero is one thing. Deku having to become a hero by 12 o'clock today is a completely different thing. And then if he fails, the whole world explodes. That's extra, you know? So just consequence. You know, it doesn't always have to be a huge thing, but it's nice to have sometimes. What happens if they accomplish their goal? What happens in failure? Is there a clock on it to add tension? How does the success or failure change the nature or develop the story? Why does the goal even matter? Why are they motivated? What changes? Sometimes having bold changes as a result of certain events in the story can help add some juice and sauce to your story. It'll keep your audiences on their toes, excited to see what happens next. Events like character deaths, the success and failure of goals, and so on. Not all consequences, like I said, need to be dire, the same way not all stories are life or death. And even then, you can still get away with no major consequences. I mean, if Naruto never became Hokage, would have it changed that much? Not really. I don't think so. Becoming the greatest ninja or Hokage was a little bit of, the selfish personal goal that wouldn't have worked if audiences didn't witness him work hard to earn it. His other motivations and goals of helping the village and defeating certain villains, now those had consequences because if he failed those, he could have died, more people would have died, so more stuff to consider. It's easier to get away with no major consequences if audience really root for the character and just want to see them happy because, maybe they can relate to the character in some effective way. For my series Apple Black, published and serialized in Saturday AM, Sano kind of has these visions that are designed to steer him down a certain path that he doesn't want to go down. He kind of wants to become free and have his own way, have his own dreams. Kind of feels like he's in a box, almost like a science experiment, and just kind of along for the ride. He wants to kind of drive the car, if that makes sense. Drive his car. And so freedom is a strong motivator for the character, and freedom in his mind also comes after forgiving those who've wronged him in major ways. It almost feels like he can't move on without dealing with that in some way. Almost like the opposite of, say, having revenge as a motivator. He wants to kind of find closure, forgive them, and also wants them to find closure, which, will come with his own problems. There is a naivete that comes with it because it's obviously not going to be that easy. But it's something that I try to explore in my series without trying to be preachy about it. Have fun with it and face the obstacles that come with trying to achieve that kind of goal, especially if the baddies are like really baddies. And there are also other things about it that I can't say without spoiling stuff because it actually isn't that straightforward. There's some really nice twists that, one day hopefully we get to. I can't wait to get to. I know it. It's in my head. I can't share it with you guys without spoiling it. I don't want to. But the reason I bring up Sano as an example is also that there is a consequence there. Or at least there's a feeling of consequence from Sano in that if he does succumb to the nature of his visions, stuff's gonna get really, really dark. Probably for everybody.
Chained to the infinite cycle of hate and vengeance. On one hand, I'd become a slave to the nightmares. Or worse, a master of them on the other.
You need solid motivations for your character? Make a list. Make a list to see what speaks to you. Something to evoke empathy and interest. Here's some core basic ideas from Jojo Bizarre Adventures creator Hirohiko Araki from his manga theory book. Self-protection. Self-protection of social status, prestige, feelings, memories, hiding a scandal, to protect a loved one, friend, lover, work, duty, patriotism, curiosity, self-discovery, which Sano has a little bit. Vengeance sometimes can get you empathy, even though it can backfire, especially if you use it for your main character. If they're the ones enacting the said revenge, it can feel selfish if it's something that, would have been better suited for the police. Like, why didn't they just call the police or sue the person or something like that? Unless the threat or vengeance involves a force that's maybe supernatural and it can only be resolved by said character, then it feels more justified. Now, obviously, vengeance is always going to have some touch of selfishness there regardless. So it really comes down to how you execute and deal with that. It's just more acceptable if the main character is best suited to handle it versus, calling the police. It's almost like you're handling it because no one else can and you don't want anybody to get hurt. You can have it where the main character is actually doing it for selfish reasons but is masking it behind justice. Again, it comes down to your execution. Some characters have straight up evil motivations and audiences could, take a liking to those characters and live vicariously through them, through their evil actions because, some people have some dark minds. I'm sure some of you sickos were rooting for light. I see you. But back to the list. Combating boredom, desires, or thrills that come with money, power, love, sex, fighting, pursuit of happiness, or freedom, kind of like Sano, or to become strong. Why do you want to become strong? To protect your friends. Again, sometimes these can be connected. Look at a Goku or something. Meet a hero, be a hero. The list goes on and on. Sniffing panties. You do you. I don't judge, man. With basic human motivations like these are easy to relate to since, we're human. If your character has these motivations, facing their obstacles in their way, struggling and persevering in smart and satisfying ways with strong morals and principles like bravery or wits, you should be fine. Please leave in the comments what your favorite character motivations are from your favorite shows. Or if you have a character of your own, let us know in the comments. I'll be checking them out, probably liking my favorites. Like this video if you enjoyed it. Holy Ghost, smash that subscribe button. Hit the bell so you stay notified each time I upload absolutely anything. Turn on all notifications. Help out with all that engagement stuff. Those who are watching the video and not subscribed, come on. Help a brother out. My motivation is to get 1 million subs. So I'm making this video. Make sure it's a good video so y'all like it and subscribe. Let me hit my goal. I'll be making more writing videos like these. So y'all stay tuned for that. If you're curious about my series and how to read it, where to get it, Apple Black, Publishing Serializing Saturday AM. Links to everything you could possibly need will be linked in the description. You can read Apple Black Retro 1 on the app right now. Check out my other stuff, Sweat Manga, and I'm outie.